Welcome back to Podcast Recovery, everyone. We're your hosts, David O.
Allie B.
And Eric V.
Today we're joined by our very special guest, Ben. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Awesome, man. Cool. Where are you from, Ben?
Yourself?
We're doing. I think we're all doing pretty well.
Yeah, pretty well.
Good, good.
Yeah.
Where are you from, Ben?
I currently reside in Denver, Colorado.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
I was just there in July.
Love Denver.
Yeah. Great city.
Nice. Yeah. I love it out here. I'm originally from Michigan.
Okay.
And I also spent some time living outside of Atlanta, Georgia. So I've been around, and I also spent 6 years in Ohio. So I've kind of made my rounds.
Nice. What has better weather, Colorado or Michigan?
Colorado.
Winters are much better in Colorado.
Yeah.
The winters are pretty harsh in Michigan.
Oh, yeah. That lake effect snow, that'll kill you.
Right, exactly.
So when were you first introduced to recovery?
So, technically, I was first introduced to recovery. At a young age, I always heard that my grandfather was my paternal grandfather was an alcoholic, and he would go to meetings. But during my lifetime, I never saw him pick up a drink within the 30 years that I knew him before he passed. But I just hear story after story. But I never really viewed it as something that I'd have to worry about down the road, you know. But if somebody asked if I had alcoholism that ran in the family, you know, I always had to say my paternal grandfather was an alcoholic. So, and my dad always mentioned like him going to the rooms and this and that, but I never actually witnessed or ever talked to my grandfather about it. So it was one of those things that was kind of just like, you knew Grandpa didn't drink and he was an alcoholic, and he went to meetings occasionally, but I just never knew him to drink. So, but all my aunts and uncles and everybody on that side of the family, they all drank. So I never witnessed recovery in my daily life. I just heard things about it. And then I really didn't introduce myself to recovery until I had multiple run-ins with the law. And I was almost pushed into doing something different for myself as well as for others.
All right. And how long have you been clean?
Excuse me, can you repeat that?
How long have you been clean or sober or both?
I've been sober since November 15th, 2014.
All right, man. That's awesome.
So, yeah. So that night I got my third DUI, and I was taken to the city jail, and I spent a week in their city jail before I called anybody to get bonded out or anything, because I was embarrassed of myself, and I was embarrassed, you know, for everybody I was associated with, like, because I don't think a lot of people viewed me as an alcoholic at times, because I was more of a problem drinker, binge drinker, and I never really felt the need all the time to, like, you know, get that next drink. It was more, you know, where's the next party, where's this or that. So I got caught up in the lifestyle. And then, you know, one big thing would happen. Either a triumph or something that went bad in my life, and I'd want to either celebrate or drown the sorrow. So I'd go straight to alcohol, and it became a bigger problem. When I first started drinking, though, it was just for social camaraderie and like going out and having a good time with friends and this and that and meeting new people. But I think a lot of my anxiety and a lot of self-doubt and self-confidence and self-esteem and those sort of issues all strive from multiple moods to having to meet new people and go out and being a shy person as I am, and kind of timid, and I felt it loosened me up and like got me out there, so yeah, and then it stemmed from there, and so I can talk a little bit about my DUIs and how my drinking progressed through years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Take it away.
Okay. Yeah, so I originally grew up in Michigan, and my dad worked for UPS, and so he got transferred when I was about 8 or 9. It was 1991. We moved to a suburb of Toledo, Ohio, and there I met friends pretty quick. I was still young and that sort of thing, so everybody was like greeting me as I came in the classroom. It was the middle of the school year, so it was a lot easier at that time, just because I was the new kid in the class and everybody wanted to like come greet me. But then again, I was in 3rd grade.
Yeah.
So I spent 6 years there, and everything was good. I was big into sports, so I was playing like 3 sports, like baseball, soccer, and hockey. And so every weekend I was, into that. And but when we moved to Toledo, we kind of stopped going to church, or didn't really find a church to like belong to, and so I kind of lost a lack of faith in that sense, or a lack of connection to any sort of faith. And then in '97 we moved down to Atlanta, Georgia. I was going to a school that was like 3 times the size of the high school that I would be going to, because this was 2 weeks before my freshman year. So I was kind of just thrown into the mix in a school with 3,000 kids,
Wow.
Yeah.
And when I moved to Atlanta, and that was a big change for me.
Yeah.
Going from a small city kid in Michigan to like, a suburb of Atlanta, Georgia, where there's, we're class 5A. I've never heard of such thing,
Yeah.
And
do we even have 5A schools here?
I don't even know what that is. Yeah.
I don't think so. I think the biggest we have in our state is 3.
No.
Right, yeah, that's kind of how
4.
it was where I came from, I don't even think they reached A.
Wow.
It was,
We had B schools.
So,
D schools.
Right. So I was kind of overwhelmed when put in that situation, getting there 2 weeks before school started, not really knowing anybody. And all these people came up, and I realized they all had their cliques already, because they all went to middle school together and came into the high school. So they already had their groups together. So I kind of had to form my own, And so I didn't start. I met a few good friends that are still friends to this day to me and supportive and have actually stopped drinking themselves. So I'll get in a little bit more of that later. But I didn't start drinking really until I was 17. So I was, I was a year behind everybody as well. So my maturity level, or a year, what should I say? I was 17 and as a sophomore in high school. So I was a year older than everybody in my class. So I was hanging out all with, and it just happened to be this way that I started hanging around with older kids, people that, so when I was a junior in high school, they were seniors in college already, But, so I was 17 at a Halloween party and I started drinking. And I've heard stories about this night. And but first night that I drank, I blacked out. I don't remember. I just hear what people tell me, going to a grocery store parking lot, bringing out a wiffle ball bat and swinging it around, pretending there's people out there. I don't remember any of it. But I just, heard stories after stories, and it's and I just thought, oh, well, yeah, I need to learn how to manage my alcohol, Maybe this was a first-time drunk type thing, And so as time went on, of course it progressed, and I just never really gained knowledge of where my limit was when it came to drinking. It was all out, go big or go home. It's the saying, It's are you ready? Let's do it. Okay. So, and then, of course, when I was younger, it was, I'd be hungover for a day, and then so I wouldn't drink that next day, but then when the next weekend came or whatever, I was ready to go, because during high school and that sort of thing, I was only drinking pretty much on the weekends, and during the summer I drank more frequently, but we were out on boats, and so we were boating and drinking and that sort of thing, and going camping, and whatever we were doing, alcohol was always associated, in that summer, or those 2 summers in between my junior and senior year. Yeah, so, and then I graduated from high school, and I made the choice to go to Western Michigan University, where I was from, because they had a good aviation school, and at the time I was working on getting my private pilot license.
Oh wow!
And so I was looking to go in for aviation, and I was always interested in airplanes and that sort of thing, and so I went into aeronautical engineering at Western Michigan University, and I don't think I was. That's right. I went up there early because my grandmother had passed away in August. And so I went up there early, and school didn't start until, a month later. So I was up there, and we hadn't even started school yet, and I ended up getting a minor in possession of alcohol. And I had multiple minor in possessions when I was up there, 3 or 4, and each one stemmed a different consequence. And I don't really recall which one stemmed which, because I know I was on probation for like a year on one, but I never took it real seriously. You know, you slip through the cracks, and then when you go visit the PO or whatever, he just, you know, make sure that you're sober and good go, and not just like schedule around that type of thing, you know.
Yeah.
But, and I think I was only like intoxicated for a couple of them. There were a couple of them where I hadn't began yet, and they just caught me in the act of like purchasing or grabbing alcohol, because I was only 19 years old at the time, you know. So, and then let's see, so yeah, it just kind of stemmed from there. And then I lived in the dorms my freshman year, and I just kept going out to parties and trying to get to meet people and that sort of thing, and got some friends. And then I just, after my freshman year, my parents lived on, they just bought the house back that I grew up in when I lived there when I was 9 years old. And it was on a lake, and they said, you know, you can move in there and take care of the place as long as you promise to take care of it, and, you know, and keep it up and that sort of thing, mow the grass. I was able to stay there. And then I ended up moving in there, and then I ended up, the first couple semesters I was there, my grades started to fall, and I stopped going to class a lot of times. And my aunt and uncle were living downstairs, and I was living upstairs by myself. And I got placed on academic probation, and then I fought that and got off academic probation after my grades the following semester. But then I decided to take a summer class, and that summer class was, I don't know why I took calculus as a summer course, because it was one of the toughest courses. It was like calculus 2 or 3. And I just stopped going.
Yeah.
I just dropped out.
I would too. Fuck calculus.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah,
Who
man.
needs that shit?
I'd rather, at that point, I was rather be on the lake, you know, boating. We had a couple speedboats, and we'd go and have keg parties on the sandbar, and, you know, and we were just having a good time, living it up, had fires on the beach. And before I went to school, I all had that in mind, because my priorities weren't in line when I chose the school I was going to. I got in a couple other schools, and I probably would have been better off closer to home and closer, just to more focus on what I want to do in school, rather than, oh, where's the party at, or hey, where's the you know, Thursday night football game, or the Saturday hockey game, because they all had to, because it was a Division I school, so I thought that was pretty cool to like go to the games and stuff. You know,
Yeah.
Of course, of course, tailgating and drinking was always involved, so that was on top of my mind.
Of course.
And then I went to visit these other schools, and I just didn't see the, you know, see it happening. So, so I lived on the lake for a while, and that just progressed. And then after I wasn't going to school anymore, I took a few classes at community college there and that sort of thing. Finally, my parents said, enough's enough. You're moving back to Georgia with us, you know. We're coming up there, and we're moving all of your stuff out. And during this time, it's all kind of a blur to me, because it was so like surreal, and I never saw this happening. But my parents just kind of came out there, cleared out the house, and like shipped me off. I don't remember packing anything. I just remember, hey, you're going to Georgia. That's, you're going to live back with your parents, which no kid like 20, 22, 23 years old like doesn't want to hear,
Mm-hmm.
So
Eric, do you want to live with your parents again?
No.
Yeah. So once I got back there, I started looking at schools there because my parents always pushed for education, and they wanted me to finish my degree, whether it be aviation or whatever it be. So I looked around at local schools and kind of weighed out my options, and I ended up going to the Art Institute of Atlanta.
Oh, nice.
And
Nice.
I ended up graduating, getting a graphic design degree.
Okay.
So I have a bachelor's in graphic design. It took me a little longer than it should have, of course, but so it was like I graduated in 2009. So this was from like 2004 to 2009. So it took me about 5 years, which I had all my core curriculum already done when I was going to school for aviation. So all my core curriculum was out of the way. I took a aptitude test for math because they said, oh, if you take this and pass. Well, then they asked me if I wanted to be a tutor because I like aced the test because it was just basic math to me. And I was like, do you get paid? They're like, no. I was like, nope, not doing it. So
Yeah, fuck that.
Yeah.
I ended up getting a job, going to bartending school and getting a job as a bartender while I was like going to school. And then I started off bussing tables and waiting tables, and then worked my way up to management and like running the bar at a steak and seafood restaurant. And I was into that job for a while, and then when I was 23 years old, I believe, 2007. Correct me if my dates are off, because at that time I didn't really keep track of my dates and that sort of thing. So, but I got my first DUI. I was on my way home from work one day at the steak and seafood restaurant. I knew this back way that had this winding road, but it was faster. But man, now that I'm looking back on it, that road was super dangerous for any drunk driver. So
those are the most fun, though.
Yeah, those are the
those are the fun
choice
rides.
roads.
yeah, you
Choice.
know, I was like, oh, shortcut, you know. So, yeah, so I was going out, and then it became where I was going out after work to the Applebee's next door and, you know, getting $2 tall boys and just pounding them until they closed. And I'd stay after close even, you know, because they knew me. So they were just like, let's party. And then by the time I got home, you know, sometimes there'd be beer in my fridge and stuff, and I wouldn't stop. I would just keep on going until I passed out, you know. And a lot of this was just, you know, me not being happy with who I was.
Mm-hmm.
And me not like, I didn't like myself when I drank. It was more to drink for people to like me and for me to stand out. I always had to be the life of the party, you know, and I wanted that attention. And maybe that has something to do with being the oldest child and just wanting attention and just wanting, you know, I don't know what it stemmed from, but it was I think it was, I just always wanted people to like me. And that's what I thought I needed to do for people to like me.
Mm-hmm.
Is, oh, who can drink the most? Oh, Ben can drink the most, you know, like, oh, challenge him. And I was always up for a good dare. Always.
Nice.
So I mean, I'd like to think that I was like, you know, one of the jackass, like Johnny Knoxville or something without a camera, you know. And I was just...
That's a really shitty aspiration, but I had the exact same thing.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. I think I was
you know, because we didn't have cell phones at that time where everybody was taking video. I'd be screwed nowadays because everything would be on video, you know?
Or you'd be YouTube famous. Yeah, one or the other.
Yeah, internet sensation, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that first DUI hit me pretty hard. I came within like a foot of hitting a telephone pole into a ditch. And I pretty much was stuck in the car at that time. And then they didn't need to pry me out or anything, but I was in a ditch and I was pretty much passed out behind the wheel when they came and got me. And then I spent some time in jail at that point, and then I eventually got out, and I was on probation, and all the classes I had to take, and then, well, I think I had a 2-year probation or something, and you know, I kind of find loopholes in the system, and my family doesn't think I'm drinking, but, you know, I'm drinking on the side. And then eventually I'm just like, you know, drinking a drink here and there with the family. And it eventually just kind of like fizzles out. And I want to say I was still on probation with my first DUI when I got my second DUI.
Nice.
On the same road.
That's always solid.
Yeah, on the same road, within a mile radius of one another. It was on the opposite side of the road, but this time I flipped my car. I rolled it into a ditch, just overcorrected on a curvy road, and I crawled out through the window, and I was scared. I didn't know what to do. It was like 2:00 in the morning, and I think it was like Father's Day. So I didn't want to call my parents. Eventually I got up the urge, you know, I kind of wandered off into the woods, and I called my parents. I'm like, I need you to come pick me up. And I fled the scene, you know. Just being a scared, you know, 24-year-old at that time. And I was just like, I don't know, like, what are my options? You know, I don't want to go back to jail. I don't want to do this. So but I wasn't thinking at that time because I was just wasted, you know. I think I blew a .235 or something. Like, whoa. I was up there. Yeah. So I don't remember leaving the bar. I just remember, you know, I'm good. Like, I don't remember who I was with. So I called my parents, and they tried to come pick me up. Well, the cops have the road surrounded. They have me surrounded. They're like, they have the road closed, and all the roads closed around you. I'm like, all right. So I just walk. I finally give myself up. I walk out with my hands above my head and just say, hey, I was looking for help. I don't know. So they took me to jail. I didn't get charged with fleeing the scene, but I did spend some time in there, and then I got out on bail, and then I had a warrant out for my arrest, so they eventually came and took me in. And I think I spent a few weeks in there. I don't exactly recall how much it was because I was on a warrant rather than like a sentence. So I was just waiting for court at that time without bail.
Yep.
So, so after that, you know, I had stints of sobriety through after my first and like during my first and like through my second, and this time when I crashed, I actually hurt my hand. So my hand was injured. I never told anybody, but when I got out, I was playing a basketball game and somebody barely touched my hand and it ended up fracturing it 3 places. So anyways, that was the end of the steak and seafood restaurant. I didn't end up going back there to work because I was just, I was humiliated. At the same time, I had a broken hand, so I couldn't really do a whole lot. And so I was just kind of focused on school and finishing that up, and I got done with school. And so, I mean, the drinking just kind of, I mean, I could tell drinking stories for days, but that's not my purpose here. I just know there's a lot of people struggling out there right now, and my way to sobriety is kind of unconventional. So I just wanted to share it with people so that maybe they could relate to me and kind of move forward. Because I didn't end up going to the rooms, and like I was introduced to the rooms after my second DUI, and I believe I went to like one meeting, and I was like, oh, this ain't for me, because people were talking about how they needed to drink and how they went off on heroin or cocaine, and I never had issues with any, like, all the hard drugs scared me because I got so fucked up on, you know, on just booze, and, you know, I'd smoke some weed from time to time, but, you know, booze was my thing, so I never understood anything else. So it's hard for me to relate to those stories within the rooms, you know.
Yeah.
So I was looking for a job after school, having a hard time. I don't know that I totally put myself out there. But I had a friend out in Colorado said, hey, I got a room available. You want to come out here? You can stay in the room for a couple months free.
Nice. Price is right.
Until you get your feet on the floor. And this was a buddy that I had known from Ohio when I lived there, from middle school. So we had known each other. I'm actually really good friends with him still to this day. And,
nice.
We've been friends for over 25 years. So, I mean, those close friends, some friends, even though they drink still and go, they're supportive of my habits. And that's most important to me, is because I can't affect what I do versus, you know, what the path that somebody else does. A lot of times they're not the alcoholic. I was always the, you know, so they understood, like, yeah, you probably should take it easy, you know. Like, yeah, you were always kind of a loose cannon. But, yeah, so those friends that stuck with me really mean a lot. But so I moved out here to Denver, and that was 10 years ago now, almost. It'll be 10 years in February. So I ended up, at first I got a job. I had a few jobs when I first got out here. I worked at a hotel for a while, setting up for banquets and doing that sort of thing through one of my buddy's friends, because all I knew was my buddy that lived out here. So one of his buddies set me up with this banquet job. I was like, but it was only $9 an hour. So I was like, man, I got to look for something else, This ain't working out for me. Plus, it was overnight setting up for morning banquets and that sort of thing. So it wasn't working out. And I got a job as a graphic designer in a marketing department at a telecommunications company out here. They're a telecommunications consulting company. And that worked out really well for 2.5 years. And until I just got too comfortable with my situation, I think. And the drinking just oversided, and so I was drinking during the week, and then I'd come in and at the time I got let go, I had no idea alcohol had anything to do with it. Now looking back at it, I'm like, yeah, I probably could have, taken my job a little more importantly and probably worked my way up and did this or that. And I definitely was not in the right mindset going in there at 9 a.m., in the morning at sometimes. So I got out of that, and then I was unemployed for a year. I was on unemployment, so I was just using that unemployment money, to pay rent and drink pretty much. I was on a liquid diet at that point.
Nice.
So, yeah. And then, so I was living in, at first when the job was going smoothly, I was living with just some people I met off like Craigslist or something in a house.
Ooh, that never ends well.
Right, and the price was right, and they had a nice yard, and it was a nice area in the DU area, which is University of Denver, and a little south of Metro downtown. So I thought, oh, okay. Well, one of my buddies moved out from Michigan out here, one of my childhood friends, and he moved out here, and he wanted me to get a place with him. I was like, cool, let's get a place. So me and him and one other guy ended up getting an apartment towards Aurora, Colorado. So it was a little more outside of the city and outside of, the commute. And at this time, I didn't have a job, or at that time, I did have a job. That's right. I hadn't lost my job quite yet. I didn't lose it until I moved in with them, because they were still looking for jobs, and instead of looking for jobs, a lot of times they go out and drink and party, and so I was just but you couldn't stop me. Once I got going, I was gone. Some people can have a couple drinks and, stop and, get their stuff done. But that wasn't the case for me. I just drink until I passed out or blacked out, and then, wake up the next day with a hangover. Sometimes drink again. Sometimes drink Gatorade and wait 2 days and then go back at it, So yeah, and I was going downtown a lot, bar hopping, doing that sort of thing. So, and I ended up getting a job at a bar downtown, working security in 2013. So, and I know my parents were skeptical at the time. They're like, oh, I don't know if you should get in the restaurant industry again. You had your problems, because they're worried about me drinking there, which is understanding. But at the time, I just needed a job. So I worked security there, and then I won't dig too deep into it, but I ended up driving home one night from drinking at the bar that I worked at, and I knew all the deals in town, of course. that was always my gig. I'd just get all the deals in town and the people that knew me so I could drink for cheap and free. Yeah, so I was on my way home and there was a police cruiser or like a unmarked police SWAT vehicle in front of me, and it stopped to take a left-hand turn, and I rear-ended it.
Nice.
And they had like their tactical gear on and everything, so they got out of their vehicle with their tactical gear on. And I was just like, oh man, this is it. I'm done. You know, I'm caught already.
Yeah.
So I just pretty much turned myself in. People say don't say any details to the cops. So I didn't care at that point. I was willing to take the consequences for my actions. And that was always the case with me. If I did something, I was going to hold myself responsible.
Yeah, I was the same way.
Instead of playing the scapegoat and always trying to blame someone on the situation. So I went into it, and this DUI, I got arrested, and they took me in, and I had a different vision of it this time. Of course, I was 2 sheets to win once again, but I had a lot of time to think about it and kind of have a self-reflection. And I spent a week in jail before I even got bonded out. So before I called my parents, which I think I started this podcast with, but and when I got out, I just realized, hey, I got to do something different. This isn't doing it for me anymore. I can't keep going down this road. It's going to lead into me getting injured, me injuring somebody else, or me killing myself or somebody else, because everyone resulted in an accident. Not to mention, I had, I totaled 8 cars over a period of 15 years.
Jesus.
So, yeah. I mean, a couple of them, of course, were just stupid errors where I didn't change the oil and burn up engine and that sort of thing. But I realized that even when I wasn't drinking, during those times of stints of sobriety, my head was always cloudy, and I never really had the urgency or the I never really made it out to be oh, this is my last time I'm doing this, but this third time I was like, dude, I can't do this anymore. And I got sentenced pretty hard. I got a 6-month jail sentence in county jail. And I got, community service, and I was on UAs, or urine analysis, drug tests, whatever you want to call them, right when I got out on bond. So I had to call in and get random drug tests, and starting off in early sobriety, I was going in every other day, taking drug tests, So there was no way I was drinking or anything,
Yeah.
And so I was 6 months to drink, and it was in May of 2015, and it was my birthday, not my sobriety birthday, but my belly button birthday in May. And I kind of had a recollection. I was like, you know what? I haven't had a drink. I haven't had any drugs, but there's something missing in my life. And I can't go on like this. So I was just living being a dry drunk, as they like to call it.
Yep.
But so I made myself go into a AA room, found the room by myself, went in there without telling anybody. I went to AA. And then I met a few people in there, and for a while I just sat, and I knew first time I went in, I didn't relate to the people, so I tried to take a back step and just sit there. So I did my 90 and 90. And over time, I haven't felt the need as much for rooms, but I know it's there as a tool if I want it. And a lot of times I do want it because I want to help other people and share my story. The same reason I'm sharing it with you, because I want other people to learn that they can change their ways if they just put their mind to it and kind of go about the right path. So I continued going through the rooms, but I just didn't go as frequently. I ended up getting a full-time job, and I'm still there to this day. So, and I ended up not. And at the time I went into the rooms, I hadn't gone to jail yet to serve my 6-month sentence. So I was kind of just waiting until I went to jail and then figuring out from there. But at least when I went into jail, I had these tools. So I had the AA tools and the stuff to bring me, so I did a lot of reading and that sort of thing. And I ended up getting on work release, and the bar that I was working at actually allowed me to work there during work release, which was a godsend.
The jail let you out on work release to work at a bar?
Yeah.
Yes.
That is very poor.
I know.
Poor job by the jail.
Yeah, but I was wearing an ankle bracelet that monitored all alcohol consumption through my metabolites and my blood and everything.
Yeah.
And I was still on these UAs quite frequently. So, and I was on work release, so I'd have to go back there every night after work and that sort of thing. And sometimes the buses weren't, because I didn't have a car, so I'd have to get a ride from a manager all the way back to the jail at night sometimes. So the bar itself, I appreciate them because I worked with a couple other sober guys that didn't drink, and so they understood and they really helped me out. And they would give me work. I'd come in and scrub walls just so I'd have something to do just to get me out of jail. So, and they were willing to give me as many hours as I could. And so I ended up getting out in about 4 months or so. I was on work release for 4 months, and then I was on house arrest for another month after I got out. So it was a long stint, but during that time I did a lot of self-reflection, a lot of writing, a lot of reading, a lot of self-recovery, and set goals. This is what I want to do. This is where. So I was able to get that job when I got out, get away from the bar scene. So now I'm in manufacturing. I work for a medical manufacturer, make blood bags and blood components. Nice.
Yeah.
And, full benefits, and I get paid decent, puts a roof over my head, food on table, and really that's all I need. I'm not really a materialistic person. And everything's going great right now. There's things that I need to improve, but at least I'm aware rules in place to fix the things that drove me to drink in the first place. And now I never really had the urges or cravings so much. It's like more, it was more of a FOMO, like fear of missing out, like of parties or like social interactions and that sort of thing. But over the years, that has kind of diminished, and I've learned I'm a lot more, a lot more introverted than I just need to accept that rather than try to be an extrovert, you know. So, so yeah, I keep to myself a lot now, but you know, I've got involved in other things, you know. And before COVID hit, I was volunteering for this and that. And that's kind of gone down a little bit, but I enjoy going to the gym. I exercise a lot, and I'm healthy. I eat healthy, and yeah, I just feel great. So, and I couldn't even imagine going back to drinking at this time, just because, just how I feel mentally, physically, spiritually, and it really means something just to feel good, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know if I ever had that when I was drinking. It was more, you know, just to numb the pain, you know? So I'm very grateful to be here, and I'm glad I'm able to share some of my story with you guys today.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we definitely have some questions for you, Eric.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, you want me to go first? Fine. All right. All right. So you said the first time you went to like AA, you couldn't really relate to the people. So how did you finally? Was there something said, or what drove you to finally like relate and like buy into recovery?
I think that at first I just didn't give it a chance. You know, one or two meetings isn't gonna persuade you like, oh, this is the route to go. This is the way to be. So I, over time, going to multiple meetings, like sometimes I'd go to a couple in a day, and then I'd stay around the rooms because it was an old like colonial house. So it's devoted just for AA meetings and NA meetings. So they didn't have anything else going on in that place. So afterwards, everybody would hang around the porch outside and smoked. Yeah. I never smoked, but I always hung around with the smokers just because there was good conversation, you know? Yeah. And then I just learned to, you know, take what I needed, take what helped me, and leave the bullshit behind, you know, leave the stuff that I didn't need to hear in the rooms, and realize that some people were, and there were these different shades to recovery and different shades to alcoholism. It didn't always have to be. I always thought an alcoholic as being a deadbeat drunk, you know, and living in, like, I never lived on the streets or anything. I always had like some sort of roof over my head, whether it be living on a couch or, you know, I never was in. And I always had my family support, you know? So I never, I guess I was fortunate in that way. Because I wouldn't be in this position as I am today if it wasn't for my family and for my parents and my siblings. And they just were really supportive of me. And, yeah, so that just made me want to get sober for not so much. I mean, it was more than myself now. Because if it was just I was just doing it for myself, I don't think it would have ever happened. You know, me getting sober, because at that time, I didn't care enough about myself.
Yeah.
I cared about other people more than I did myself, you know.
Yeah.
But when I saw it, when I saw it reflecting on them, I was like, oh man, I can't put them through this anymore.
Mm. All right. All right. Who's next?
I got a question. So you said that like AA and the information that you had, it kind of helped you while you were serving your 6-month sentence. And other than like the reading, were there any like tools or like just anything that you would learn that helped you kind of navigate and like, I don't know, I guess just get through that situation?
When I first, it took me a while, but during the rooms, I really stuck to the serenity prayer.
Okay.
And just trying to find that courage to change the things that I can, you know, because, and even at times now I have problems getting that courage because I always had that liquid courage, you know, and I was always a shy, timid person, so I didn't take big risks unless I was drinking, you know, and sometimes now I have a hard time taking, you know, good risks, you know, that could make me succeed more in my work or in my life. But it's that afraid of failure type thing, or just not having the courage to go out. Like, I know I'm capable of things, and then I'm like, I don't know. I get that like those butterflies in my stomach, and I'm like, I don't know if I should go down that road, you know, like different career path or something, because I have a lot of different interests. So I'm like, my music is like across the board. Like, I don't have one genre that I stick with. You know, I grew up listening to bluegrass with my dad plays bluegrass, and then rock and roll, and like and hip hop, and I listen to everything. And that's the same way my life is, and like my interests too. It's like one day it'll be like I'm doing a painting, the next day I'm playing an ice hockey game, you know? And it's like I never knew a career path to go down because I always wanted to. I always wanted to experience everything. I always wanted, you know, I always wanted to do this, and it sounded cool after a while until I got bored with it and wanted to go on the next best thing. So so I mean, but I'm learning, you know. I had to rekindle myself with my faith and just kind of find myself again, and really my values and what I believed in and that sort of thing. And so and I know what keeps me sober, and that's helping others and, you know, exercise and that sort of thing. So I try to focus on that, and, you know, and they say live one day at a time, but that's how I do it. Just one day at a time. And people ask me about future plans, and I'm like, I really don't know. I can't tell you at this time, you know, because I'm not very good at it. I have goals in mind, but I don't like to put them out there because I feel like it puts more pressure on me. Or I put more pressure on myself because I told other people that. I don't know. I think it's a little mind trick that I play on myself.
Cool. So, you know, I heard you mention the rooms a little bit, and I believe you brought up Celebrate as well. How would you describe your typical week in recovery as it is right now? You know, what are the things that you're doing for your recovery on a daily basis?
So, for my recovery, It's been hard to get to the rooms with COVID and everything around here.
Yeah.
But so that's kind of been put on the back burner the past month or so. But besides that, and I still, don't get me wrong, even though I don't go to the rooms, I still read the big book, religiously, and I still go on the principles, and I still carry that serenity prayer everywhere I go, like on a daily basis, like I recite it to myself in my head. Mm-hmm. And and sometimes it just makes me feel better, and hey, I can't control this. Let this go. Mm-hmm. I don't need to be in control all the time. And I do, when I wake up, I do meditation, and I do, like I said, it rekindled my faith. So I was going to church sometime, and I've done some Zoom meetings as well, which are good, but it's not the same for me anyways. Being kind of shy, not really outspoken, I don't know. I gotta get used to being on video, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, so I do much better in person, I think, but I've been working full time during this entire period, so
nice.
That helps a lot too, because a lot of times I'm doing manual labor, so I go to work, and I actually work nights, so I have to go to work tonight.
Oh,
so
shit.
I'm on the night shift. So during the day, like most people are working, and I'm just usually working on some design stuff, and then I get my sleep, and I go to the gym on a daily basis. Sometimes I don't get there every day, but I try to get there, at least 4 days a week. Mm-hmm. And I just feel better about myself if I keep busy, Mm-hmm. I'm working on learning the guitar. And I do drawing, and I do painting, and I do design on my computer, and I enjoy a lot of things. So I like to get out for a hike in the mountains and that sort of thing. And so when I can, I like to get out. I'm more of an outdoors person. I'm an indoors person, so I don't really sit around and wallow away a whole lot anymore these days.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we do have another podcast coming up, so we do have to cut you a little bit short, but we'd like to thank you for joining us tonight, man.
No worries. Thanks for having me. It was great talking to you guys, and I hope I help some people out there, and yeah.
All right. Awesome.
Very cool.
Over to you, Allie.
Is that me?
Yeah, it is you.
All right. So we would like to thank you, Ben, for joining us tonight. Here at Podcast Recovery, we are aiming to expand the scope of support for recovering addicts. Accessibility and convenience of helpful service is paramount in combating addiction. We work to bring the message of recovery to every addict, wherever and whenever it is needed. We believe that a powerful voice of recovery should be obtainable, practical, and at the touch of a button. Every addict deserves to hear a message of hope, and Podcast Recovery is here to provide that.
Fantastic job.
Thank you.
Good job for your first year. Eric was like turning to, yeah, absolutely. Have a good, blah, blah, blah. What am I doing?
You're stumbling a little bit? Are you okay?
Sorry, was it me? It was such a soothing voice.
It was.
So, here at Podcast Recovery, we do need your help.
We do.
To help keep the mics on.
Join the home group.
So, like what you're hearing over here, You can join the home group through our Patreon page, which you can find in the description below, or you can throw some money in the digital basket through our PayPal account. You can also like, subscribe, comment, follow, share. I'm sure there's some other things I'm just not thinking about on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and anywhere else you can find Podcast Recovery. Please leave a review, like, and subscribe to anywhere you also are listening to this podcast.
Absolutely. And if you'd like to come on, shoot us a message. And for more information about Eric, Carly, Allie, and myself, go to podcastrecovery.com for all of your recovery needs. But most importantly, everybody out there,
Stay safe and stay clean.
nailed it.